One of the goals of the It's Our Air video series is to present a variety of viewpoints on air quality issues in North Carolina. All the opinions expressed in this program are the personal views of the student participants and interviewees, and not necessarily those of the North Carolina Department of Environment and Natural Resources Division of Air Quality, any other state government office, or any of the sponsors of this program.
It's up there. You know, the atmosphere. You see the clouds, you feel the weather, but there are things you don't see. Gases, pollution. Those things can affect you too. It's time to take a deep breath and figure it all out, because it's our air. Let's take a look closer to home. What types of air pollution do we have here in North Carolina? I mean, with something as important as the air we breathe, seems like we ought to know what's in it that might be harmful. But do we?
So what are the most common air pollutants in North Carolina?
I do not know.
Air. Well,
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
See, in North Carolina,
Acid rain.
I'd say probably exhaust fumes. I would say some sort of pollution from factories.
Carbon dioxide.
Yeah.
From the cars, the smog.
Pollen.
Ozone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The whole thinner ozone.
Tetrafluoride. Chloride, I think. TFC.
It looks like some of us are clueless. To help answer that question, we have someone who answers it every day.
Well, across the state, we certainly worry about ozone levels, and we also worry about particle pollution. They tend to be higher in the Piedmont, but we worry about those all across the state. And deposition issues as well. Deposition is where the pollution is being deposited onto either the land or the water. So we're constantly looking across the state to see what are those emerging issues, what are the things we need to be working on.
There are lots of stories we could tell about the problems being caused by air pollution in North Carolina, but let's look at just a few from different parts of the state and see what we've learned about these problems and how we're dealing with them. First, from the mountains.
What are the biggest air pollution problems in the mountain region of North Carolina?
Well, actually, we get a lot of the air pollution coming in from other parts of the state and the region, so we have to deal with acid deposition in our high elevations, ground level ozone, haze or the visibility issue, mercury, which gets into our food chain.
Because the mountain is so high, highest peak east of Mississippi at 6,684 feet, it creates like a trap, a concentration of the pollutants. And these pollutants hit Mount Mitchell as an acid rain, the acid fog.
Now, from the Piedmont.
What types of air pollution do we have in the Piedmont that are harmful to our health?
There's two major types of air pollution that happen in the Piedmont. One type is ozone. Ozone happens mainly in the summertime. The other kind of air pollution are particulates or microscopic particles that are in the air.
Well, the two biggest air pollution problems here in the Metrolina region are, number one, ozone, and then particulate matter. Actually, Charlotte is doing okay, meaning the air pollution, the ozone levels have actually gone down, but we are still challenged with that.
And finally, from the coastal plain.
What are the biggest air pollution issues in the coastal plains region of North Carolina today?
We have air toxic emissions from a variety of sources, and one of the pollutants, among others, is mercury. And then the nitrogen deposition, or nitrogen oxide deposition, that can deposit into eastern North Carolina's nutrient-sensitive waters.
So the mercury issue, it's really huge. And right now, the entire state of North Carolina, every water body in the state of North Carolina is under a fish consumption advisory for mercury. And it's one that we don't normally associate with the water because we think of it as being airborne. Well, at some point, what goes up kind of has to come down, and it ends up here in our environment.
So, how do we know these air pollutants are in North Carolina's air?
What is being done in North Carolina to monitor air pollution issues?
monitoring stations around the state that monitor for ozone, particulates, nitrogen oxides, sulfur dioxides. But then in addition to that, we have facilities that, as part of their permit, are required to monitor the emissions from their stacks.
So we know these air pollutants are here in North Carolina, but where do they come from?
The burning of fossil fuels, coals, gas, oils.
The coal burning power plants putting out a lot of the SOx, in particular, the sulfur oxides. And that contributes to both the acid deposition and our visibility issue. But then the cars that people drive every day and any type of combustion engine, that nitrogen also contributes to acid deposition and the ground level ozone problem that we have. Mercury is primarily coming from the coal burning power plants, the medical industry.
The two biggest problems are what we call stationary sources, which are big industry, which is mostly power plants, and the other one is all the cars and trucks we drive. In the past, it was more about major industry, power plants and things like that, but because of the Clean Air Act, and we have regulated or reduced emissions from industry power plants, whereas with automobiles, cars and trucks are cleaner, but there's just more and more and more of them.
Airborne mercury travels for not just a couple miles or 10, it can travel 1,000 miles or better. Here in North Carolina, we have coal-fired power plants, but we also get a lot of our mercury influence from as far away as Tennessee, Kentucky, and West Virginia.
We've talked a lot about air emission sources that come from stacks, that pollute through the stacks, but we also need to bear in mind that we are making good progress on controlling and reducing those pollutants, and then that's going to change the focus over to our mobile sources, our automobiles that we drive.
So, what's the big picture for air pollution in North Carolina? Well, we have several air pollutants that are of great concern all across our state: ozone, particle pollution, and mercury. In the mountains, we have pollutants like NOx and SOx that help form ground level ozone, contribute to haze, and lead to mercury and acid deposition. In the Piedmont, we have two major types of air pollution: ground level ozone and particle pollution, both of which are a concern because they can affect our health. And in the coastal plains region, deposition of air toxics like mercury are a problem. Where does all this air pollution come from? Well, it comes from all over the southeast states and from right here inside North Carolina. Here's an interesting statistic. About 20% of the ground level ozone in North Carolina come from stationary sources like power plants and industry. On the other hand, mobile sources like cars, trucks, planes, trains account for a whopping 80% of ozone pollutants in North Carolina. 80%! Think about that next time you jump into your car, or your truck, or your train. So what's happening up in the air in your neck of the woods? Wouldn't you like to know? Maybe it's time to find out.
So have you ever fished before?
Once when I was little.
Okay, so one time. Well, you know what? As far as I'm concerned, that makes you a fisherman. So we're good to go here. How about you?
Not at all.
Well, guess what? In a few minutes, you're not going to be able to say that anymore because you're going to be a fisherman also. We're not sure what we may end up with here, but we'll give it a shot and see what happens. So I'm going to need you to hold that one for just a second. Bring it back this way a little bit. And then when you flip it, let go with your finger. All right. Good job. And then without hooking the river keeper. There you go. Okay, so now you got it out there. You can start to reel yours in. Just jump right there beside it. So there is some stuff out there. There you go. All right, how many times have you all really fished before? Seriously, I'm not sure I'm buying that.